Shaking on Shakedown Street, used to be the heart of town. Don't tell me this town ain't got no heart. You just gotta poke around.
Well, hello again, my friends. Welcome to a Sunday afternoon with Carpo. Today we're going to be talking about, I'm going to be talking answering, rather. Should I just start the whole damn video over? Hell no. I'm going to be answering questions today. And no, I'm not asking for your questions now. Actually, I've made Q&As over the last several years. And many of my long-term subscribers know that I tend to make a Q&A, and then I just don't answer the questions. It's not intentional. Sometimes I answer them in the comments, but my intention is to make a video answering the questions that people ask me. Makes sense, right? So, I went back to the video I made about a month and a half ago, and I'm going to answer those questions. There weren't many, probably because I never answered the last ones. Then I'm going to go back and answer one from about a year ago, 9 months ago, actually, that some of you asked me. And so my apologies for the long delay, and if you happen to be one of the ones that asked, I'll do my best to answer. Some of you like to ask 10 questions, and hey, I can't answer, everything because, some of the questions I don't have answers for. Without further ado, I should get to it. I've got my computer over here with my screen open, and this video was uploaded January 10th. Clear my throat, pardon. This was Karpos Corner, Q&A, philosophy, police, protest, and politics, general discussion about life. And so the first question, not all of them are questions, so I might have to scan over them. The first one, from William Johannes, do you have any pics of you in your 20s? Pictures of me in my 20s? Yes, of course I do. Do I have one handy right now that I could show? Maybe? Let me see. I might. Yeah, I do somewhere. But I thought that I might have, you probably won't even be able to see these anyway. I've got pictures of me when I was young. There's one with me and my brother. You can't see it from where you're at, but you could probably pause it and blow it up. But I don't look much different, honestly. And anyhow, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll try to find a picture of me in my 20s and upload it with this recording. The next question is, he asked a few. I'll answer William. He's a good subscriber, and I'll answer all these. Cannabis has a consciousness, and when we smoke it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what do you think about cannabis interacting with us, with our consciousness? That's a very open-ended question. It's very difficult to answer. I like to believe that the cannabinoids activate, since they... cannabinoids in our endocannabinoid system, which is our natural cannabis system, we have a natural THC that we produce. It's endogenous, and it's called, it's called the bliss molecule. It's anandamide, and ananda is bliss in Sanskrit. So it's an interesting concept, but can you talk about a deep mushroom trip and how it related to the deep psychedelic nature of this reality incarnation? I have had some intense experiences. I'll tell you what, I'll do a separate trip report. Something I've been meaning to do. So I'll just leave that for later because I could talk for hours about my trips. What is your vision and what are the steps you're going to take to make it come true? Oh man, that's a big question. I'm not really sure. Really, I just want to be happy and content and my family to be happy and, to try to treat others with respect around me, to not get sick and die too young. And if I can get that much, I'll be content, pretty much. But on the other hand, I would like to be successful in writing. I'd actually like to find a way to do more of the vlogging and writing type things like I do and turn that into a functional career of some sort. Because right now I'm pretty much, I'm broke. I run my business with herbs, but it's very difficult for me to get paid for what I love to do. So I'm just, hoping that my vision was that I could write and create for a living. I'm with a lot of people on that one. Why do you think you were born incarnated here? I really don't know. I don't think I have a purpose to it. And if there is a purpose, it's way beyond my comprehension. So he said, the last question he says is, every day is a repeat with changes in the environment. Then we get old and die. Any thoughts? Oh, I have a lot of thoughts on that one, William. Yeah, we do. We get old and die. I think that the best we can do is it's called memento mori, which is remember you will die. And by remembering at all times that we're mortal and not dwelling on some afterlife, then we can really truly embrace this life. And I know it's scary. It is hard to do. But I don't necessarily believe in reincarnation the way others do. In other words, I may have a past life, but I don't remember it. Therefore, I won't remember this life in my next life. So that's what's really important to me, is my life. It may sound selfish, but it is, because this life is all I know. And a lot of people say, well, your soul evolves to another, body. Fine, so be it. That's awesome, except for the me that is me is only here for now, as far as I know. And because of that, I don't know if I could believe in eternal heaven or anything like that either, because it just would get boring, let's just say. In other words, people would say all my friends would be in hell, right? So thanks for your questions, William. The next question is from Biff Tannen. This is from a month ago. He says, thoughts on suicide and what happens when we die. I guess I could kind of refer back to the comment before this. What happens when we die? I really don't. I mean, I have my suspicions that we have an intense experience as we're fading. Dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, which is released upon death. Also, when you smoke it, it has a very supposedly similar experience to a near-death or out-of-body experience. And I can attest to that amazing experience, but I can't say if it's the same because I've never died. And so if you're asking suicide specifically, what happens when we die, I guess I don't know if the question is what happens when we die if we commit suicide, or thoughts on suicide and what happens if we die. I don't think that suicide would have any real impact on what happens when we die. It would be the same as if we didn't. But I do have some thoughts on suicide, and it's changed over the years. I used to think it was a very selfish thing because, I made a video a long time ago about my neighbor committing suicide. We had a family member, and once you've lost people that you've known to suicide, you think, how can you leave behind your family and do this? It's just ridiculous. But you have empathy for the people. It takes a while to heal, and it's a difficult thing for people to overcome because it does seem selfish on the outside. But people are complicated. We're all complicated. The next question was, what kind of plant is that in the background? Well, I already answered. It was a Chinese money plant. It was called a palea. I've got a few of them. They have little offshoots, and they're really cool little plants. But I don't have it behind me now anymore, of course. Okay, this is from Meridian Heights, ASMR. Okay. Okay, here's a few rapid-fire questions. Question 1. In the above video, your shirt, jacket, hair, and guitar behind you all have a sort of honey color, which gives this video a sort of sepia old-tone look. Did you plan that? No, I didn't. I got to look at the video real quick. Oh, okay, I see. The guitar and everything. No, I just have a natural style that comes through no matter what I do. No, actually, I did not plan that. Question 2. I'm not a cat person, usually. I've noticed that Callie has beautiful markings and seems to be one of those rare cool cats. How did you get Callie? Callie was the daughter of a cat named Indy. And Indy we got from, along with another cat named Perkins, and he ran away. He was an orange tabby. And they were brother and sister from a litter from my brother-in-law's friend's house, I believe. Something like, I don't even recall exactly. Maybe it was somebody at work, We've had a lot of cats, but we had those cats. Then she had Callie, and then Callie had another kitten called Tigress, and we ended up having all 3 of them, and plus 3 dogs. And we gave away one of the dogs when the kids were born because he was a yapper, Prince. But anyway, all the rest of the animals have died except for one, Callie, and she's about 15. She's a sweetheart. She likes to pee on my socks and stuff, and it's really annoying. But anyway, I got her I watched her be born, I guess, from her mom. So the last question, question 3, is why do people drive on parkways and park on driveways? Well, that's simple. Because is the best answer for everything. Next question is from T.O. Here's a few questions. Number one, what are your 10 favorite bands or records? Look, I can't really do that, but I could do a few of my tops. I really like the Grateful Dead, Fish, and Jimi Hendrix, and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, that kind of, the hippie stuff. I also love Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer. I also like, and these aren't my tops, I guess, but, they're up there. I also like Chemical Brothers, and I like Propeller Heads, and certain EDM bands and stuff like that. I guess not bands, but an Infected Mushroom and all these other bands that come up. I go through phases. I love all forms of music. All forms of music. This morning I was teaching myself to play slide guitar, and I was doing this transition, this blues transition that I was learning. I was like, I'm just determined to watch this dude do it on YouTube, and I wish I had that when I was a kid, but that also changes how we listen to music. If you want to hear something you haven't heard in a while, you're like, oh my God, I forgot about this band. You just look it up on YouTube. It's great. So, I love all types of music, and I'll go through my records sometime. Number two, if you could get an answer to every question, what question would you ask? I don't really want the answers to any question. I kind of actually, and that's an honest answer there. I would ask individuals things about themselves or what their experience is. I guess if I were to ask any one question to get an answer, it would be, do humans have any purpose on this planet? I guess, and if so, what is the best course of action in this life? Or is there something beyond? But even then, I don't know if I would want to know that. So, I don't know what I would ask. Number three, how can one become more creative? Practice. Just keep doing it. You sit down and you draw. You frickin' pick up a guitar and hit a chord. If you suck, you suck. That's fine. You get better. That's the whole point. If everyone was good at stuff, then, we'd never really stand out. So to become more creative, sometimes you have to be inspired, and that can be hard. It has to do with brain chemistry, dopamine, serotonin, how you're feeling. But sometimes I have to force myself to just do it. Turn off the TV, turn on some music, whatever it takes, and just go. If you want to get up in the morning, turn on some music, grab a piece of paper and a pencil and just start sketching stuff and see what happens. Or work with clay or whatever. Creativity comes in many forms, and you might be underbidding yourself or underestimating your own creativity. You might just do things that you don't deem to be creative. I don't know. Number four, how would you answer this question? Haha. Number five, how does humor come about? That's a good question, a really good one. I think that humor is one of those things that we don't understand through evolution, why it happens. Why are things funny? Why are jokes funny? There has been a lot of research into it. It really goes nowhere, but it seems that it comforts us. It helps us to deal with difficult situations and questions by kind of poking fun at them, which is why I guess in the PC world right now, where comedians are afraid they can't tell a crude joke, it's important that they can, because if there's no harm meant, it helps us to just kind of bring things out in the open for what they are sometimes. But anyway, number six, what is your best purchase ever? Honestly, I think my best purchase ever was breakfast at Banning's Restaurant in Tigard, which was right next to the gas station where I worked in 1997-98, which is where my wife worked as a server, and I'd go in there to get breakfast, and she'd write little notes on the inside. And it's funny because I didn't give that question any thought. That's just the first thing that popped into my head. The best purchase I ever made was that breakfast where she asked me out finally, I guess, because if I hadn't met her, my life would have been completely different. And there's no material purchase I've ever made. And if I were to say, okay, it has to be a material purchase, the very best purchase I've ever made was my school bus. Awesome. I love the school bus. So thank you, Tio, for your question. Next question is from Joshua Penner. What do you think of the infrastructure problem in America? Bridges are constantly getting marked as being below standard, and roads seem to never get fixed in many areas. Should infrastructure be maintained by the public or private sector? Public, absolutely. If you're going to run a country, I believe that if we're going to pay taxes, it's either we keep our tax money and fix our local roads ourselves, or we pay the tax money that we pay goes to fix the roads. When we're putting $1 trillion a year into the military, not quite that much, but who knows with black ops projects and everything else. When we're putting that much money into the military every year, there's no reason we can't fix our own infrastructure. It's just preposterous how much money is wasted, and it doesn't really cost that much to maintain, and preventative maintenance goes a long way compared to replacement and paying out lawsuits. And I think that we are just completely wasting money in this society. So it's complicated, though. If you want extra fancy roads, maybe you have to pay for it privately. If you're in a private community, maybe you should have to pay for your roads, that kind of stuff. Okay, the next one. The next one is by Clint. It looks like he's just talking about Bernie Sanders. Yeah, I don't want to get into the Bernie Sanders thing or talk about Trump. I just say Bernie Sanders isn't far from perfect, but he's the best option in my eyes. That's my preference. The next question is by We Awesome Mead. The fires in Australia and California were caused by the testing of newly built cell towers. No, I don't believe that. So that's just not my belief. I think that it's a very complicated thing, the fires that are going on. So I don't want to really get into conspiracies. I've also heard people say that they were lasers and everything else. No offense, I just don't know. So that was the Q&A from just then. This is the older one from 9 months ago if you want to stick around. And it's already been 15 minutes here, so I think there's only a few questions. The first one is by Aaron Gulch. I don't know how to pronounce it. And hi, Aaron. If you're out there listening, actually, Aaron has a great channel. I'll try to put up a link. I always forget to put up links, but Aaron Gulch has like this channel where he talks about stuff that's kind of deep, and he gets into the depths. He's from South Africa, I believe. He says, what are your thoughts on superfoods? Example, baobab, cocoa, camu, hemp, maca. I think that they're all unique, and I think that they all have their place. I will just say this. I think that most superfoods are just fads and way overstated as to their actual benefits. We go through these wheatgrass fads. When I was younger, it was like ginkgo biloba for brain power, and then it's something else. That said, I take maca. I take ashwagandha sometimes. The one thing I do take is mushroom extracts. I have 3 or 4 different ones. I've been out of cordyceps for a while. But my wife loves to put moringa, which actually has a lot of vitamins. That's a great green leaf superfood, and we grow it in the garden, or try to, but they always die. Maca root tastes delicious, and I've always put it in my smoothies, but not in the last year or so. So I think they're great. I just think that they're overpriced, and there's, like anything, can be abused in the market, and prices just go through the roof. Sorry. I've just got like this lump in my throat. The next question is from GoGo311, one of my old school subscribers. What's up? How about the topic of holistic thinking? Well, that's not really a question, but I'll shoot. Holistic thinking, I think, is great. I call myself an herbalist, an amateur herbalist maybe. I never took classes or anything, but I've read a lot about herbs and books, and I also read about the chemistry. My thing is just to keep up on neurochemistry, what's going on with the body and how they react to these plants and how these drugs react with one another. Because now that all these different plants are readily available, you can cause yourself a lot of damage if you take too many of one supplement. They're not just benign. And so kratom shows itself. Obviously, you take too much, you feel sick, you get nauseous. But the idea of holistic thinking, to me, I guess it depends on the definition. I just think of it as trying to heal yourself naturally. I think it goes too far when people start charging you for sessions where they lay crystals on you and try to rub your crown chakra out, from afar or over the phone. We have to decide when a person is ripping us off. But then there's the angle of placebo. There's a place right about 2 blocks from here. It's called something Holistic Health Center. And I'm always curious about it. Like, I kind of scoff in my mind, like, what are they doing? How are they healing people? Because I have, the medicine, singing bowls, and I love working with frequency, seeing if it actually helps to calm me. And like, I'm open to everything. But the more you learn about chakras and these things, you just start wondering, what does it really mean, and how much truth is there? And I'm going to do a whole video on that one eventually. I just haven't got around to it. The next question is by Piazzo32. What do you think about wearing camouflage, classic army style, or in other colors, at Burning Man or other festivals like that? I think it's fine, but there are what I would call the Burning Man Nazi types they're the ones who think that they're the exact opposite of that. They're the ones who are supposedly all-inclusive and open-minded, and you might call them social justice warriors, but that's not really the proper term. It's more like if you appropriate anything at Burning Man from another culture, supposedly, you're going to get ridiculed, especially Native American garb, which I haven't heard any issues of camouflage. So whatever. I think a person might look kind of silly in camo, but do it. But when it comes to Burning Man, everybody looks silly. So what does it matter, right? I dress like a freaking weirdo when I go to the regional burn here. So the point being, people should be free to wear whatever they want. It's open to self-expression. However, there have been a lot of complaints about people wearing Native American headdresses. And many of these aren't representing a specific tribe. They're just headdresses. But supposedly, only a warrior can earn these headdresses. And so since these people haven't earned a headdress and they're not native blood, then they're appropriating it and they get ridiculed, harassed. And I think it's bullshit. It makes me just want to wear a headdress just to say fuck you. Because honestly, you've got to understand, if it's done with reverence and respect, that's different. Sometimes people wear it. I mean, the thing is, I love feathers. I used to make headdresses when I was a kid out of feathers I'd find. I mean, I think it's an awesome idea. You can't just say Native Americans own crowns of feathers, right? But beyond that, cultural appropriation is how every single thing came about. All of our styles, we appropriate everything from each other. Music does it. Television does it. It's crazy to think that, you know, we should be super sensitive about certain cultures when some people in that culture don't even care. Some Native Americans have said, because I read a lot about it last year when there was this issue with Burning Man. But so wear camouflage, do whatever, just do it with respect and tact. Don't worry about the haters. Let's see. I don't know what this one means. So something about A Course in Miracles, but I don't know what ACIM is. What are your thoughts? This one's from Highway Child. What are your thoughts on LOT, the Internet of Things, or as Richard Stallman calls it, the Internet of Stings, data collecting, technology creeping into our homes, if you have the time? Orwellian. Highway Child, I did a whole video on that, if you haven't seen it, maybe a week ago or two, all about us being watched. If you just Google Karpos 719 or go into the YouTube search, hit Karpos 719 with any topic, pretty much, you'll come up with a video I've done on it, but specifically tech and spying and the whole Alexa thing. We've allowed it into our lives, and it's pretty silly that we've allowed it to happen just for our convenience when really it's not that convenient. But you could see the other video. Jacob asks, if you could go back in time, would you rather be a knight or a pirate, and why? He said, that's a question from the Q&A a year ago that I didn't get a response video, in case you were wondering where you read the question before. That's hilarious, Jacob. I don't know if you're watching this, but I remember that question when I read it, and I was going to answer that. He says, would you rather be a knight or a pirate, and why? I would rather be a pirate, and I'll tell you why. As a pirate, you're a free spirit. You're not owned by a king who can decide to send you off to battle for something he deems to be worthy. However, pirates, it turns out, many times were often sent out by the same people, the same kings and queens that sent out the knights. So therefore they were working, but they were working as subcontractors, right? Rather than being a direct employee, okay, in a way. But it's all noble and fun and games being a knight, but then you have to go out and kill people. But if you plunder, you can decide who to plunder. And you can decide to plunder the ships that are carrying the gold in taxes that they took from people that they shouldn't have, because back in those days, there was a lot of thievery going on from the average man. So the Robin Hood complex makes me want to be a pirate. And I know that one of my ancestors, it's the only thing I know about my family history, that one of my ancestors was a pirate. So, cool. Thanks for the question, Jacob. Johnny Klin says, CBD, do you rate it? Do I rate it? Well, I guess I will refer you to my video about CBD in the same way as the one about, the other question. I have several videos about CBD. If you look up CBD ripoff report, that's how I feel about CBD. There's a whole thing about it. And the next question is from Brian Fairweather. Not sure exactly the right question. I've had MS for 10 years. Okay. Let me see how long this is. Okay. If you know how kratom works on the nerves for pain. I know that it works. I don't know how it works. I mean, it's an analgesic in a way. It calms that connection with the nerves. But I guess that would be for a more technical question. If you're asking, what I think he's asking is, does it work? It does work in my experience. So that's just my experience. Dermot Falcon. Wait, it says Dermot Falloon. See, I always thought it said Falcon. See, when you look closer at screen names. Anyway, hi Dermot. I'd like to know your thoughts on the ideas of our previous humanity that nearly got wiped out by an extinction event. Graham Hancock's research, among others, is compelling and exciting. Oh man, yeah, dude, that shit is amazing. I've watched the Rogan interviews too with him, and see, there's Hancock and a couple of the others that have really studied this stuff. Found out about the Missoula floods in eastern Washington, and I live in Washington, and I drive out east when I go to the gorge, and you can see those rippling hills, and it's like, wow, that looks like water did that. Pretty interesting geology. There's a huge debate about what happened and when. Then we found the Greenland meteor that hit just around the right time during the Ice Age to end the Ice Age, and it's just a really interesting story. The idea, I guess he's asking, is whether or not a previous intelligent society, such as the story of Atlantis, existed at one time. I believe it's totally possible. I believe that we would be foolish not to consider the possibility that perhaps not humans as we are, but a species closely resembling us, or a bipedal human-like, or maybe a different branch, evolved, say, a few 100 million years ago. Who knows? Maybe between, before the dinosaurs, some of the dinosaurs. History is long, put it that way. The Earth is billions of years old, but life really has been wiped out like 5 times, more or less, till the last event. But we don't know what was here. And I think there very well could have been a small human population that was advanced enough to, I don't know. We find the Antikythera mechanism is one thing we found. It's like 1,000-year-old. It shouldn't even exist. It's not that old, but it's just an amazing piece of machinery. And then the more we study ancient history, the more we think, okay, in the recent thousands of years, there probably wasn't a lot of, there was high technology at one time. We don't even know how the damn pyramids were built. I know that we think that this is all settled, that the pyramids were built as tombs and they were done in 30 years, and it was Khufu's pyramid. Even though there's no inscriptions on the inside of the pyramids anywhere, or at least not that one, except for in the very top chamber, which was like graffiti that said Khufu. There is a kind of a cognitive dissonance we have as seeing where we are as humans now and thinking nobody could have ever got this far. I think now that we've seen how fast cities can disintegrate, you wouldn't be too far off to think that it was possible. It may have been possible that an advanced civilization lived here at one time. So that's a long way of saying yes, I think it's possible, but we have no real evidence for it. So keeping an open mind is good. The next question from Big Bobby 7278. Have you ever tried dream herbs like African dream root or mugwort? No, not a lot of times. Not in many years. I don't have a problem with weird dreams, and sometimes when I'm just taking an afternoon or evening dose of kratom, and then sometimes if I vape or if I chew some nicotine gum, it's weird. This like evening kind of dream-like state that I go into, that's when I have the coolest dreams, the most interesting like day-like dreams. It's like that hypnagogic state. But as far as taking herbs to sleep and have weird dreams, the only one I could say is mucuna pruriens. When I take that stuff, I have dreams that are off the hook. They're crazy. And I haven't had any for a while, so maybe it's time to get some more. Next question is Scott. He says, I see a lot of YouTubers talking about Coachella right now. Maybe it's sort of stupid, I don't know, but I think you could speak on festivals that be more enlightening to people and culture. Just a thought. What do you think? Yeah, I don't... Festivals are a tough one because there are a lot of kids going out just dancing around with glowing lights and raving and getting high. But that's what I do too. You know, it's going to festivals, of course, is fun. I don't like the large festivals because I feel like they're just totally overwhelming. They cost too much money. It's just mostly just DJs. The festivals I like, I don't even like festivals really that much because I don't like all the bands, and I haven't been to a lot. I did go to Bonnaroo in 2009, but it was too big, just too big for me. And I'd really like to, you know, I'm going to Fish. I got my Fish tickets the other day, and I'm going out to the Gorge Amphitheater for 3 days of Fish in July. It's going to be freaking awesome. I'd really like to make a video talking about just the atmosphere and why I love these events, and maybe I'll do that in the future. I guess I don't really have the time to talk because I could go on and on about festivals too. I think it all comes down to community. I thought about this today when I was watching some Allman Brothers stuff from back in the day, and it's just about community. You go to a show, you meet people that are like-minded, and you have a connection, and you don't want to lose that experience, and it's awesome. So, next question is from Lions Temple. He says, he or she says, what will society be like after oil runs out, most probably in this century? You know, I've thought about that, and I think we'll just kind of slowly transition. But I think something much worse will happen than running out of oil. We definitely have too much of a dependency on fossil fuels. I have a feeling that a lot of people are going to have to die, and the population will level off just because of circumstance from farming, not having enough for, to feed in the future, the changing climate that people are in denial of, even though there's not a lot you can really do at this point. Just kind of, try to take care of our environment and do what we can. But running out of oil is an interesting one because we've talked about peak oil many times before, but we keep finding it, and we become more proficient in extracting it, which isn't really necessarily a good or bad thing. It just is, but we'll see what happens. I don't know. I think we'll just transition out, and we'll be forced to use more efficient or electric vehicles. Yeah. So the next question is, wanted to know about the 7 wonders. I'll try to get to that sometime. I guess I'm going to have to go. The next one was from Wheats. Is there a question? Talk about blah, blah, blah. Okay. No question. Peace out. Peace out, Wheats. Mary Jane. Okay. The last question is from Peer Life. As far as questions, what do you think is a safe age for people to start using drugs? Any drugs, caffeine, weed, mushrooms, any drugs you wish to talk about. Oh boy, you're going to leave me on that one? I think honestly, if I were to give a number, I think that really that people should avoid using drugs until they are maybe at least 20. Not just because that's the legal age, because your brain is still developing, but your brain is always developing, even at 25. I used LSD when I was 15 and probably used it more times between 15 and 18. I probably used 10 times more in those 3 years than I've used since. And then discovered mushrooms. I started smoking pot when I was 14 or 15. But the thing is, I didn't smoke that much pot because I couldn't afford it. But I would, pinch bowls from my parents and stuff like that. Anyhow, I don't want to get into reminiscing, but we had some good times, but I also ignored a lot of responsibilities. I didn't do very good in school because I never finished my homework. However, I would always pretty much ace the tests. And my teachers, of course, would say, if you just do the homework, you can get a passing grade. But here I am with a 1.5 in math. And I made it all the way through senior year because I got kicked out of my high school, went to another one, went to an alternative school. Then I got accepted into another alternative school, which was Metropolitan Learning Center, or MLC, in downtown Portland. Great school. It's a K through 12. And you have to write a letter why you want to go, and they accepted me. And I went through my senior year there, and in both of my alternative schools, I got like a 3.5 GPA. And it's because of the way they structured it. I'm not the kind of person who does things the way that schools did things. So as long as I didn't have homework, I did just fine. And I still knew the information. So anyway, I think that school is important to finish. At the time, I was getting stoned all the time, and I didn't really think of it as that important. I was too distracted partying with my friends. And fortunately, after high school, I did a lot of research and kept learning and teaching because I love to learn. Not everyone does. So if you go and you start using pot when you're 12, 13, and you're smoking all the way through school and you don't remember anything, and then you proceed to get a job and never learn anything, you're just going to be bummed out the rest of your life. You know, it's important to be educated. So whatever it takes. Some people can handle it and some can't. And I don't know. To each his own, right? Just be careful. Thanks for listening, everybody, and I hope you gained some insight, and I'm glad I could finally answer those questions in a very long video. Wow, that is a long, long recording. I'll talk to you all soon. Be well, and I'll do another Q&A come down the road. Take care now. Peace. Thanks for coming to Karpo's channel, yo. Yeah.
First